everybody. We're back again with another episode of Big Talk About Small Business. It's my buddy Eric Howerton is here along with me, Mark Zweig, and we have a very special guest today.
That indeed we do.
And this is another one of my friends. It's Richard Scott. And when you're with Richard, you feel like you're with somebody special. Don't you, Eric?
I do right now. I'm very humbled right now. I mean, I'm like, why am I wearing my ball cap?
I know Richard classes up the whole place.
He does.
Yeah,
I'm like
his presence.
You can't see right now, but I'm wearing flip-flops, Mark.
Yeah.
I feel terrible right now.
Well, I've got driving slippers and white socks on myself, so I'm not much better.
The driving slippers are worse than flip-flops, for sure.
But no, Richard's a classy guy, and I'm really anxious for everybody to hear his story. Mm-hmm. He has, 5 or 6 businesses plus a nonprofit, and really overcame some amazing, overcame some significant obstacles to get out of his native rural Jamaica and end up here in the United States and being as successful as he is today in a relatively short time. I mean, Richard, you're a young guy.
I am fairly young. I had just had my 35th birthday last November.
Awesome. 35, man.
Yeah.
That's
to be
fantastic.
35 again.
Oh my God. If I was as smart as he is and 30 and it's where he is in the business world at 35, my God.
Maybe it was probably good that you weren't.
What would have happened?
I know. I mean, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to predict what might have happened.
Probably wouldn't have bought Zweig White back from the lender. Then you and I never would have met, Eric.
True. Yeah, it's all divine.
Yeah, it all works out for a good reason. But so, Richard, though, I'd like to start out today with you just as briefly as possible. Just describe the different businesses that you currently have, and then I want to step back and get into your background. But tell us about these various businesses. What are they? What do they do?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, both Mark and Eric. So I've been in. It's interesting. I've been an entrepreneur now for 8 years. Yeah, since 2016, 17 or so. I started initially with my partner. We had an idea to start a ancillary preventive telehealth business, ProCare Innovations. And so that was kind of the brainchild or the baby to who I am today. Today, that business kind of focus on chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, and a few other ancillary services. And we serve or navigate just around 15,000 patients a month.
Wow.
That's crazy. Yes. And are they mainly urology patients? Is that?
Yeah, we have a fairly big footprint in the urology space. So I would say just over 80% is urology. A small percentage of those are some primary care and some orthotics or orthopedic patients as well. That kind of led to a series of, what I joke about being a bad case of ADD.
We've all got ADD, brother. Yeah. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, when people try to go get it fixed, I'm like, don't do that.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I mean, almost everybody I know who's successful has some ADD.
Agree with that.
Because you got to be able to spin a lot of plates simultaneously.
Yeah.
We all do it.
Yeah. You got to be able to squirrel.
Yeah.
What's the squirrel?
Yeah,
it's a survival mount.
It is.
It really is.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, it really is. Actually, to do exactly that, a survival instinct.
Right.
Uh-huh. So anyway, ProCare kind of slingshot itself into in trying to acquire clients for ProCare, which was at that point pretty early on in most of kind of Arkansas and Oklahoma as a neighboring state. I discovered there's a lot of small independent practices that were struggling to operate as an efficient business. And prior to starting ProCare, my partner, I had a stint in nursing home from an operational standpoint. So I kind of learned a bit about operations in that space. Mm-hmm. And so in doing so, I realized that there was a lot of missing pieces in the primary care space. So that kind of led us to starting our primary care clinic, AIM Health Clinics, and that started in Oklahoma City with the intent of focusing on the most vulnerable population, which is geriatric,
Yep.
and kind of really push the preventive medicine. And so that lent itself to an opportunity where we acquired a second clinic in Moore, Oklahoma, bringing it under the umbrella of AIM Health Clinic. So currently we have 2 sites operating in that segment. And in anything that you do, I think just networking, meeting people from different places, it's kind of interesting. We had an opportunity to meet with an operator of a lab. Back then it was a PCR high complexity lab before it was cool back in 2018. And they were what I felt was on the edge of something incredible with my stints in nursing home, because they were using PCR technology in a way such as, to in the most layman's term, it's basically taking DNA found in a viral or bacterial specimen and then essentially multiply it to identify whatever strand of bacterial virals are present in that specimen. So without going
into is a guy who has absolutely no medical education, I might add. But anyway, go on.
We shall touch on that in a second.
Go on.
Yeah, but I knew that.
Understood it.
Yeah, I knew that from my stints in nursing home. We'll just take one of the most common infection that takes place in the elderly, which is a UTI, right?
Lots of catheters, and other inactivity and things like that. I'm sure all
not just that. About 67% of patients today in nursing home experience UTI or have a decline in their activity and they're living because of UTI. So UTI cause them to get more confused, result in fall, hip fracture, decline, so forth, so on. So. We'll use this as a case study, and what we realized that they were able to kind of revolutionize how UTI testing was done. They would take a culture, they'll grow that over 4 or 5 days, identify what bacteria. Anyway, PCR technology allows them to really kind of take that specimen, multiply what's the virus or bacteria that's in there, and being able to, with a pinpoint accuracy, identify whatever virus or bacteria is present in that patient. And so anyway, without going off into the weeds of that, I was helping that group market that service in nursing home across multiple states. And I realized that the lab world was really lacking customer service. That was the resounding feedback from just about everyone I've talked to. And so out of frustration with being kind of a rep, so to speak, for this company, we decided to say, hey, let's just go start our own lab.
Yeah.
We don't have to, the science is a science, right? Everyone, they can tell all day long that they're doing something unique, but the science is a science. What if we can focus exclusively on the service side of the lab business?
I love that.
So
you saw a problem and you solved it.
In customer service, I mean, it's just it's great.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And that become the birth of Arc Diagnostic, which is our high complexity lab that focuses on, it's a diagnostic testing lab. Focuses on those.
Can I hang in there for just a second?
Sure.
Because I think it's such a point. We talked about it in previous episodes. But I mean, it's like you're not reinventing technology. You're not reinventing an entirely new process of the science and all that type of stuff, or interfering with the normal process of business.
Correct.
You're adding customer service to something that exists, and you're monetizing that. Where a lot of folks keep trying to go away from customer service because it makes it easier on everybody else.
Yeah, it's hard to do. We got to have good people that are nice and are trained. And
man. And I mean, and you finally solve one of the fundamental problems of the patient or the
health
provider.
Absolutely, providers.
It's like, my gosh, man. I mean, what a genius concept, right? Just provide great service, and you can.
And in theory, to your point, you're absolutely right. It is not difficult to do that, but everyone seemed to, or a lot of people seem to be shifting to the model of your point, you got to find right people. Well, take the people you have, let them understand the culture.
Yeah.
One of our mantra to that point is that we don't look at each specimen or test as simply just that. It's a soul. Each of these is a soul. So it gets the employee engaged and realizing that, okay, this is someone else's sister, brother, uncle, grandparents on the other end of the specimen. How do we ensure that we provide the best quality service from communication?
It's a neat idea. I like that.
And awesome. That could have lead to the birth of Arc Diagnostics. And I think I went number 3. So again,
keep going. There's more. There's more.
I'm trying to keep them in sequential order. But as Mark mentioned, I was born and raised in Jamaica. I grew up in a rural community there. And so in going back and forth to that, my native island, and to my community, I realized that the school I went to really lacked resource, and we can get granular about later on. And so I decided that currently I've been contributing back and forth in helping my, the former me, so to speak, in as it relates to transportation to and from school, some tuition. I'm like, what if I can make this in a manner, just simply make it a formal entity where it allows those who share the same vision and willing to give to a cost that I give to, reap some of the tax benefit that exists today for that. And so with that in mind, my wife and I kind of formed the Blue Moon Project, or BMP Momentum today, as a nonprofit that focuses exclusively on providing resources for students in a Blue Moon region of Jamaica where I grew up.
Cool.
And so that's kind of a
Giving back. It's nice.
it's a passion project of mine,
That's awesome.
for sure.
Yeah.
So that's number 4.
That's number 4.
Now we get into the unrelated businesses, right?
Yeah. So kind of getting to the unrelated pieces, I realized that we are entering an era right now where a lot of baby boomers who were entrepreneurial in their time and still is today are looking to exit the workforce. They're looking to retire. They were great at what they do, very innovative for their time. But I think part of it could be just the way they were raised, part of it could be cultural, but they're not all adapting to the way business is delivered today.
It's
No
hard.
kidding.
It's very, very hard for them.
Yeah.
They get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the amount of information and what to do and how things plug and work together and what the customers, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
And so that led to kind of an acquisition of what is now TD Awnings, which is an awning company based out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. That company has been in existence since 1907.
Mm-hmm.
It has changed name a few times, changed it a few times.
That's a long time.
That is
That's
a long time.
116
That is a long
years.
time. It was formerly known as Tucker, Duck, and Awning. And, when that was brought to my attention, the current operator was just at a place where I think he was just frustrated with the way things were going. He wasn't really involved intimately. And so I knew nothing about awning, but he was very transparent to say, I realized that when I did kind of some due diligence, I realized that a lot of the customers' frustration was back to the service piece of it.
Yeah.
They were just wasn't getting the service from one of the, I would say probably at that point, number one awning company in the entire River Valley region. And so I didn't know awning. My background has been healthcare, as I've noticed through this series of business. But I realized that there's an opportunity here to really serve the community. And I really enjoy creating process and efficiencies in operations. So with that in mind, I knew I had a GM who I trust, could share the same morals and ethic as I do when it comes down to operation.
Yeah.
And he would be someone who could be an intricate part of this if I can just help him with streamlining process along the way. So that was the intent behind acquiring back then it was Tucker, Duck, and Awning, and I finally changed the name to TD Awning. And that's been a fun project for me, just being honest, because it's not the traditional healthcare space. It's a business where they do everything from start to finish, from surveys to fabrication to installation to maintenance.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You make that successful and you'll have it made in the shade. No pun intended.
No, you were intentional about that.
sorry.
You were over there thinking about
It
that for
just
about 5
occurred to
minutes.
me. I shed some light on the awning business.
Oh, come on. Not leaving anything in the dark, are you?
So
About whatever your needs are, we've got you covered.
Come on. This is a marketing genius video, man.
it's like dad joke central.
We changed the name of this episode to Dad Joke.
Yeah.
There you go. My daughter Natalie would certainly appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. All of our daughters would. Yeah.
She got-
We should have all the daughters in one
That'd be
time.
funny, wouldn't
That'd
it?
be
Oh
great.
my gosh. Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Let's do
Let's
it.
bring the daughters together.
Let's do it.
I'm on
my
board.
God.
Let's just line them all. I mean, because how many do you have?
Just one daughter.
You have one, so I got 3, and you got
5.
Oh boy.
bring them in. They can just sit around, and then they
Be
just jump in
insane.
and ask questions.
We'll have to get in the new studio for that. We
we
got
need more room,
space.
Yeah.
more mics.
But wow, so that's interesting. So then I want to come back to some of these businesses, obviously. But then what was the next one that you did?
So the awning company, we just closed our first year last December, and it was a good year one.
Good.
And so along the way, I wonder what business could complement awning well. And so none other than
Power
science.
spring?
Science, right? Science. Yeah.
awesome.
So, there was,
They're right above the awning.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Or they're printed on the awning.
Yeah,
On
or
awning.
underneath it on the windows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Signs everywhere.
Signs everywhere. So it was the same
everywhere. The
concept
signs.
where business has been in kind of a family for generations. They're at that point where they want to kind of just step back and enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
And what better way to...
Business owners burn out. They get
Man,
tired.
absolutely.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and again, I commend them for what they've done
Absolutely.
over the span of which they've done it. I mean, because back then, I'm sure the culture was very different. It comes on to 1, entrepreneurship, 2, resource available to them, 3, just those who were born in that time, I think have parents or maybe even later off that Depression era, and they were really more conservative with sharing ideas and having this kind of forum,
Yeah, sure.
So it's the sign company is now MT Signs, formerly known as Mark Thompson and Son Sign, again based on River Valley. Been around since the 70s.
They in Fort Smith.
In Fort Smith as well. Yeah. And it was the same concept. The business started by dad some 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Operated they've done pretty well for themselves, but he was at a point where he's just ready to enjoy his boats and being
Yeah,
in the water. And so I realized that after figuring out the awning world, I'm like, this awning world can't be so complicated, And so anyway, fast forwarding to where we are today, I acquired a company and bring it in under the umbrella. So no, we have TD Awnings and MT Signs, which, again, full service sign company, do everything from start to finish. A lot of the national contracts, national vendors with a lot of the install surveys, as well as fabrication of independent businesses across our region, from as far south as Hot Spring to as far north as Bella Vista.
Great.
And the surrounding area. So again,
Very
that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
but
Is that it for now?
for now.
Okay. Okay. So you got basically 6 different things you're doing. So let's go back to your youth, okay? I one of the most impressive things about you in my mind is here you grew up in rural Jamaica, and let's face it, it's extreme poverty, really. I'm sure there are people who are worse off than you were, but nevertheless, I mean, you weren't well off by any means.
By any means, no.
Single parent.
Yes. I'm just well.
And yet, you somehow overcame that background to be able to break free, get out of your country, and come to the United States and be as successful as you are today. So how did that happen? Did you go, were you pulled out of school and they go, wow, this guy's like smarter than the rest? Or what was...
He's laughing hard at
seriously,
that.
what happened?
It was
How did you do that?
Yeah, it was quite the opposite, actually. So it was definitely not the smartest, by no means.
I don't know, man.
So, yeah.
Most people don't do that. Let's face it. How did you do it?
It was more about realizing what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
It really was that. That was a driving factor. So I grew up in a rural part of Jamaica, in the parish of Portland, and a small community up in the Blue Mountains called Shirley Castle. Population of the community is roughly about 700.
It's a small town.
Small town.
Yeah.
The Jamaica system as a whole, from let's talk education, it's quite different than it is here. So one, they don't have any kind of subsidy or resource for those who are less fortunate. It was very limited. And so where I grew up, my parents, my mom was a farmer. My stepdad, they same thing. 90% of those are committed to farm. Coffee farming is a big factor. A small percentage of them have their own independent small farm. And even those who do work for the bigger estate farmers, just because farming in rural countries is not like it is here. It's very manual.
Yeah.
A bad storm one year could impact that tremendously. So they could put all eggs in one basket. So anyway, I grew up there, went to Shirley Castle Primary School, which is here, that's like elementary school. So it's grade 1 through 6. Then from there, you kind of move on to you test into a series of high school. Now, because that town was so rural, high school for me was quite a distance away, and there wasn't a school bus system. So commuting to school was quite interesting, right? You have these
5 miles each way and up a hill.
Yeah.
And driving snow or what?
Well,
No, it was probably longer than 5 miles.
oh, definitely longer than 5 miles. So how it was basically, you have this about 2.5 miles hike down a hill in the morning, uphill in the evening after school. To that point, you get on foot. Oh yeah, definitely on foot.
Yeah.
And this was, and so from there, that was just the first leg of it, right? From there, you take a taxi, which taxi is a loose term. It's really someone who have a car who's using it as such. Now, as a student, your fare is much cheaper. So which means that
they don't want to take you because it's cheaper.
So what you do, you ride in the trunk of that wagon. That was your seat.
Oh my gosh.
Was in the trunk of that wagon.
Just hitching a ride.
Yeah, you still pay fees.
Still pay
fare, of course. You want to get to school.
Pay attention.
Yeah. So we could do that one because it was rural. There wasn't, they could get away with doing it. And so I want to get to school. So that was it. That was about a 20-minute ride to the next town. And from that town, take another taxi, 20-minute ride to my school. So
holy cow.
It was.
So every day you had to struggle to find a ride, basically.
Yes, very much so, much so. In between those 5 years of high school, I had some support where I was able to stay with a cousin who lived fairly close to the school for a period of time, and then with an aunt, and that helped my attendance tremendously.
Sure.
Because I could get to school on time, and I could. So that was one piece, right? So you have that taxi fare, that bus fare to and from school. Well, then you have to pay tuition for high school.
Really? For high school?
For high school in Jamaica, there's a tuition.
Wow.
And then the next hurdle obstacle, which has pros and cons to it, it's a British colonized country, so we were uniform to school. So you have to have really strict uniform code that you have to provide. So you have to find uniform every year for school. And then there's no subsidy program. So meals were... it wasn't like, hey, my parents can't afford meals, so can I get a free lunch or reduced lunch today? That wasn't the case. You go pay for your lunch or you don't eat. So,
God, man.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a struggle. Did you work when you were in school?
I couldn't. In the summer, I would work in a coffee farm. But, the school I went to, my high school, it was a shift school. So what that means is that the school population has grown so much that they don't have enough infrastructure. So they'll split school where you go to school in the morning 1 year from 7:30 to like 1, and then the next student come in the afternoon, so they could essentially maximize their real estate. So I couldn't really, and because where I was so rural, it was hard to get to and from school. So by the time I get home sometime in the evening, it was so late, it was just time to go, take care of our livestock, which was just a few goats, a few pigs, a few chicken, whatever I had on the side. And that was very much my school. So, I laugh about it at times, but I tell my kids, I have 3 kids, 17, 10, and my youngest just turned 9 a couple days ago, on the 27th. And we banned the word "I'm starving" in my house. At this stage, like, oh, I'm starving, Dad. It's like, please don't say that. So
Yeah, I wish my kids could spend some time with you. They're like, I'm so tired of being poor. I'm like, what?
All
my friends are in Europe this summer. I'm like, come on, okay.
I had my middle one come up the other week, and she goes, I am so busy. I'm the busiest one in this house. I'm like,
My
You can't say that.
It's funny you say that. My 17-year-old now is working 4 or 5 hours a day at Joanne Fabric.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to do 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I said, Olive, it's 5 to 9 in your case. Okay. And then I take you out to dinner or beforehand to any restaurant you want to go to.
Right.
It's not hard.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
Let's get real.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, there are times where my,
Richard. Yeah.
yeah, that's so true. But there are times where my lunch, so I'll leave, let's say I was, in morning, and it's interesting to, I don't know why I did this, but the shift you were on would fluctuate from year to year. So when you're morning shift, next school year, an evening shift. And there are times where, my mom could only find the amount for my taxi fare for that week. So, at that point, which now looking back, taught me some really good life skill comes on to finance management at a pretty young age. Because she would say, here is what I have for your taxi fare for the entire week. You can go to school 4 days and have lunch 1. Or,
Right.
or you can go to school 5 days and not have lunch any,
Yeah.
So that was part of it. It's funny because cough drop in Jamaica, we have this little, it's like equivalent to cough drop here, but it's like, they call it icy mint, a little more minty, probably different version of mint. I'm sure something made in China, but anyway,
Yeah.
but that cough drop or the equivalent of a cough drop, I call it icy mint or just a mint there. And tap water was my lunch most days. So I'll have that in the morning, or I'll have it in my pocket in the morning. I'll have some tea before I leave. I make the way to school, and coming back in the evening, all day at school, I'll have, tap water and that mint, put it in my mouth and drink some water.
Keep on going.
And keep on going, So, but
Wow.
if I didn't feel in a way because a lot more kids were experiencing the same. I'm sure it could be even worse.
Yeah,
So,
we all.
yeah,
I get that. So how did you get out of that? What happened after your primary and school?
high school,
secondary school education. What did you do that?
Yeah, so I graduate, I have a November birthday, and I started school a bit early because of that. And so
What birthday were you? 16?
Yeah, I was 16 when I graduated high school. And so college wasn't an option. I couldn't afford it, so no parents couldn't. And so there was one thing that at that point, I felt Jamaica did well. A big part of the GDP is from tourism, hospitality. And so they had what I would consider today to be a subsidy program where you could go to this institution called HEART, HEART, and you could learn essentially a hospitality skill. And that would make you employable in the workforce.
So it's like trade school
for very much
hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at that point, most Jamaicans who I knew from my rural community, those who migrate was through some kind of work program on a cruise ship. They go to cruise ship for a few months, they go work in the galley, etc. So anyway, I knew of a program that was another town over from where my school was. I could go there and I could go learn these skills. So at that point, I had to go test into this program because I want to make sure I have at least some level of competency to see what program I'm matching into. At that point, my interest was culinary. I wanted to be a chef. I'm not sure why, really, but it was
maybe because you were living off cough drops and water. I don't know. Maybe that had something.
Maybe it was some better food.
Yeah.
I don't want maybe better things.
Yeah, there's got to be something better.
Yeah. So I went there, and I, went to his tests, let him apply for this document, and there was a boarding school, a boarding institution that was, in the tourist resort area, a town called St. Anne's or Ocho Rios, which probably are popular known here, where most tourists go on vacation. So it's Ocho Rios. And so when I complete the test, it says, well, you great news, you got in the program. However, the next chef program doesn't start for another, 6 months or something. But we have a food and beverage program, which is more of the front of the house section of that. So it's more dining room services, bartending, and everything is very formal. You go and learn all these formal serving styles, formal what wine pairs well with what kind of, dish, so forth, so on. So I jumped on it. I'm saying, hey, look, I don't want to wait 6 months and miss the opportunity. And again, I think part of that is when you grow up where I grew up, you realize that opportunities were so limited. When you get one, you go all in. I mean, you're all in until you can't go no further. And even then, you're like, wait, it got to be another way. You know?
Right. Sure.
Great attitude as an entrepreneur, though.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
It's all about opportunity. Dive in.
And not giving up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, literally not giving up. And so anyway, I got into this institution, and that was a very, very interesting. I was a fairly mature kid. I think my peers could argue today, and even my peers could, where I was the oldest of 7 kids. So I was pretty independent at a pretty young age, and you know, I had a sense of a community around me where everyone kind of support each other pretty well. They kind of had to, right? It's just limited resource. It's where
all those siblings, you had to help take care of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it was normal.
Oldest.
You know, it wasn't anything else with the birthday. It was just part of being an older child.
Right.
And it was like my mom or my stepdad was off, in the clubs. They were working. They were literally in the farm doing everything that they could do to make sure that we have as best quality level as they could provide with the resource they have, So anyway, fast forwarding to me moving on to this school, it was pretty interesting. So this was a boarding school almost, where you have it's a 6-month program. You'd go to school in the daytime, you live in this dorm, 16 people to a room, 8 bunk beds, 4 on each side. And in the room, probably, 16 by... maybe 12 room size,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tight space. It was a tight space. You get to know those guys very, very well.
Yeah.
But all of us who were there had a mission, wanted to be there. No one forced us, It wasn't some punishment because we were unruly kid. We're just like, we all come from, different backgrounds and realize that there's opportunity and hospitality. So let's go pursue this. And so I got there pretty quickly. We have, at that point, maybe 300 something of us who were in the program at that time. And I realized pretty quickly, gosh, that's tough. To compete at any level with 300 plus people, I've got to do something differently.
There you go.
So the requirements were you go to school in the day, you have this curriculum you do. Then there's a hotel that was attached to this campus called Hart Hotel, Runaway Bay, a Cardiff Hotel, and it was just basically where we could go do our hands-on training. So you'd go to school in the day, and maybe 2 evenings per week, you have mandatory, you have to go and do this kind of hands-on formal training of, okay, you learn this in class, now go apply it. And it was pretty interactive because you get to meet some guests, and they'll disclose, at that point, the trainers would disclose to the guest volunteer, to allow us be, essentially a trainee in their service experience. And so I realized pretty quickly that for me to compete at this level, I have to do something different. So what I do, I volunteer every night. So I have a 2 mandatory night at this institution. I'd go to school every day, and every night I'll go to a volunteer. 1, because I know that the food in the cafeteria suck. Not sure I could say that, but
You can say that.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
And so, growing up in rural, you eat a lot of produce, a lot of yams, and and the cafeteria food was just not good. So I was like, well, 2 things. 1, I get, a meal when I volunteer. When I volunteer at the hotel, and I get more experience. I can compete. And so I did that for the entire 6 months. There may be a few evenings that I choose not to. I realize in the art rotations, you have like the service aspect, we learn dining room, and then the bartending piece of it. And so I realized that the bar is where all the fun was, because that guy get tip a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started learning to flip bottles, So I used to flip bottles,
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise right here, bro.
Cruise again, man, So I graded a program, and I got a job instantly, of course. I was in, I'd say in the most humble way, in their top 10 students, in terms of my knowledge of different class of service. And so I got a job working for Beaches Boscobel, which Beaches is a sister resort of Sandals. Sandals is probably one of the largest all-inclusive,
sure.
at least one of the best.
Seen their ads.
Yeah,
Never been to
best
one.
marketed one for sure. So Beaches is their sister resort. Sandals is couples, Beaches is family. And so I got a job here to bartend and be a server. And I did that for about, at that point I was probably, gosh, I don't know, 17 and change. I mean, I was pretty young. I was still fairly young. And the school institution have this program, essentially an internship. So what they'd do, they'd call back the highest performers from the previous year to come be kind of the next level of that, be a trainer of the former younger me, right? And so life was a little better. We got three of us to a room with a cottage. We didn't have strict light out times, we had a little more freedom and flexibility in that. So I was selected to become an intern and now train, like I said, the younger me on those same services. So I worked at basketball for a bit, came back to digital normal employee. I was getting a paycheck. Now keep in mind, during that year one, of that experience, that training, there was a small stipend. You really weren't getting paid. You were just, the education was free. The training was
like
free.
Free labor.
Yeah. Right. I don't think we'll call it that. But nevertheless, I was grateful for it. Again,
Sure.
Where I was coming from, to our opportunity to be in a coastal city, learning all this stuff, having a place where
spinning
resources.
I mean, it was. I mean,
living was good.
Living was good.
Yeah.
Living was good.
Hotel meals.
Yeah, living was good. I couldn't complain. I took the opportunity to come back at this community, this facility. And now, like I said, I was an employee of the hotel. I have some courses I had to do to essentially, advance what I've learned in the previous 6 months. And also my role was to help facilitate and train those, year one, so to speak, student. And I enjoyed that. During that time, I had, with the freedom and flexibility, me and a couple of other guys there were doing some odds and end catering job on our weekends. So we'll go do banquets. You know what I mean? It's funny now looking back, because I'm not sure at that point I even knew what the word entrepreneur mean.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just knew that it was, it was the hustle, it was the grind, right?
Hustle.
Yeah.
And so in that experience, we met tons of dignitaries and business owners from different countries who would just say, hey, you know what? They're on vacation having the best time. And they would always talk to you about what they do back, whether it's in the UK or here stateside. And I think they saw something in me. I'm not sure what it was, but they said, hey, if you want to come and, I'd love to have you work for me in the US or in England or in Canada. And, you hear it over and over. You never think that will ever come to fruition. But, you knew that one day the goal is to finish this level 2 piece of it and move on to the next big thing. Go be a butler for a 5-diamond hotel or something, which, it's ironic now looking back that the pinnacle at that, at that point for me was being a butler for a 5-diamond resort where, when Jay-Z and Beyonce go to Jamaica, they don't mingle with guests. They have someone who concierge everything for them. And so anyway, I met this British Indian guy. He lived in the U.S., Tampa, Florida, and was born in India, grew up in England, moved to the U.S., and he had some success. He was, I think that now looking back, he probably saw some of the same attributes in myself that he had, where it was just someone who take advantage, sees all the moments they had, worked pretty hard. And so he operated Subway restaurants in Florida. He had some of the real estate as well, but Subway was kind of his baby. And I naively had no idea what Subway was. I mean, think about the trains in New York. You know what I mean? That was,
hey, it looks good in their commercials. Not sure in real life it's that good, but yeah.
But I knew it was a mean to a next chapter. I knew, no, guys, at this point, I was in Jamaica. I was in some banquets wearing a full suit, tux, and white cloth gloves to serve dignitary. You know what I mean? So I was, really fine 7-course and 6-course meal with banquets that you have to sign non-disclosure, that you can't disclose the topics that are being discussed. I mean, it was
right.
It was that level of service I was part of. And
now
so
you're going to Subway.
now I'm going to Subway. So this guy said, "Hey, look,
Drag it through the gap." Next.
But he's, I knew that this was an opportunity to get to the U.S. And I knew that Subway wouldn't be the end all be all. It was just a step to the next thing. And so, when I met this guy, he came back to the island after his vacation to meet and have kind of a formal discussion about, say, hey, if you're serious in this, I can go down the channels of getting that visa for you to migrate and work here legally. Yep. And so I'm like, okay, I've heard this before, but this guy's serious. He came back to have this meeting. Sure. Maybe he's on vacation again, I'm not sure, but he made time to have his meeting.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the catalyst of me coming to the US. He says, you get 8 months initially on this visa. You can, come to Tampa, run, work for me in Subway. And the goal is that you can take over operations of these Subways for me. And so it was interesting because, while I was there at this institution, now when being an employee, I was making some income. But, again, going back to my roots, my parents, I was still kind of helping my siblings, my parents a bit, just with life. So I didn't have the healthiest saving account, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Sure.
So, when the opportunity to come to migrate to the US, I had to pay all of the legal pieces in Jamaica to get the visa and interviews, embassy, so forth, so on. And then when it come down to travel time, I had, I couldn't afford a plane fare to Tampa. So I flew into Miami and took a Greyhound bus up to Tampa. Wow. And this was 6 days after my 18th birthday.
All alone too.
Yeah. So I was pretty young.
Yeah.
I was pretty young.
Wow.
And I had probably, 300 and something bucks to my name in my pocket, So that was me.
There were people in Jamaica that lived on $300 a year.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. At that point, absolutely.
So, you'd already made a step up.
Yeah. So certainly.
To get out.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So I flew into Miami. This guy picked me up. I took a Greyhound bus to Tampa. This guy picked me up and said, hey, look, and we had the arrangement. He had some houses where I realized that he had a brilliant model where he took essentially students from all the country, from South America, some in Europe, and some in Southeast Asia, and then come to the US, same concept, work for a few months, travel, go back, you get more. And so it was, I moved into this house in South Tampa, which now looking back was a really, really nice area, what I didn't know. And we'd have roommates for 6 months, roommate from Bulgaria, 6 months roommate from Brazil, 6 months roommate from Thailand, and these guys and gals. And it was interesting. It really helped me assimilate to the culture because we're all learning the culture together. I think I had an advantage because I worked as well in Jamaica, so I was amongst the culture of Americans very much. Well, there are some guys from Bulgaria who speak very little English.
Yeah.
And in Bulgaria, they say yes, shaking their head left to right as in no. And so just imagine that, right? You spend, 20 years of your life saying yes like this, shaking your head left to right, and then saying no like this. And so, trying to convert that, I'm like, he's like, da. And I'm like, he's like, yes. And I'm like, no, he's like, no. But anyway, it was really interesting experience for me. It was really, really interesting. Got into Subway, got my apron, my little hat, and I remember just figuring out, what am I doing? This is crazy. I mean, but nevertheless, I dig in. And so I work in Subway for a bit, and then pretty quickly realized that I want to do something else. And I was very transparent with my, employer, landlord, sponsor at that
Your
point.
everything.
Yeah, my everything, you know what I mean? And he knew that, right? Yeah. So he says, if you could just, help me, with scheduling, manage the store, do inventory, shrink your schedule, So I found a restaurant in Tampa, which was more of what I was used to. It was it's called Jackson's Bistro. It's back then it was a fairly high-end restaurant on the bay of downtown Tampa. It's where the big boys go to play. It's where, a young kid listening to attorneys, entrepreneurs and attorneys having lunch meeting, referencing millions and tens of millions, like they're talking about, water bottles and caps. And I'm like, this guy is referencing 8 million and 10 million investment like it's, it's nothing. So anyway, it was really, really interesting for me. But it was fun. I got to meet some really cool people. I met my wife along the way during that my now wife, encounter. And I work for Jackson's Bistro as a server and bartender while I moonlighted for Subway, doing late night inventories and store organizations and all that for quite some time. So, as I mentioned, I met my wife then in Tampa, and at that point, we were both fairly young. She was in school. It was right during that 2008 collapse of the housing market where things were getting really, really tough. And so her dad operated nursing home in Arkansas. He's like, I tell you what, why don't you guys just move here for a bit? I can get you a job in nursing home.
Move where?
Move to Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
So this is how, you see, because of me leaving
So the
from
old
Tampa,
folks' home is, or retirement home rather, is in Arkansas.
Yeah, in
It's
Arkansas.
your wife's.
My wife started was at that point an operator in that space, and so, he says, move for a couple of years, see if you like it. We can help you get a job. You can, you guys can still go to school while work. And that's kind of how I got to Arkansas.
Wow.
It was very, very interesting. I moved to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and being someone who went from Jamaica, where it was a bit more liberal in terms of having access to information and things such as alcohol sale, for example. As I mentioned at that point, I was serving alcohol before I was 18.
Yeah.
18 is legal age there.
Yeah.
To moving to what I learned then was a dry county. I was blown away.
Welcome to the Bible Belt, right?
Yeah, I had no clue what it was. But
Blue laws, no Sunday alcohol.
That's right, man.
Got to be in the club. Pay $3 to join the club. Remember how that was?
Oh, yeah.
There were lots of places like that.
Yeah, man,
when we were up.
memberships, bro.
Yeah.
that's
That was
interesting.
before like software subscription models.
Yeah.
That's great.
The membership.
Gotta have membership.
So wait,
But you could get one right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. All
It's
you
like
had to do is-
$3.50 or something.
All you had to do is pay and sign your name.
Yeah.
interesting.
Not hard to get into.
Interesting for sure. Yeah. So, but for me, the way I grew up, it was just, I don't think I could encounter anything that I couldn't take on. I was like, it's better than the last thing I had. It's just, so I just dig in. I think in environment, you just learn to adapt and move on. So I quickly realized that, I made Arkansas home. I enjoyed it, adjusted to it, and everyone was genuinely nice. Started to meet some really cool people. And I got plugged into a group of, at that point was mostly physicians, and they were, it was like an African Caribbean community in the River Valley, and they were really cool guys and gals. They were all foreigners to the area. Most of them were in healthcare at high level, from physician all the way down to different operators of independent clinics. And when I started hearing their story because I thought it was like, man, these guys are doctors. They must come from rich parents, and and I started to hear their stories, and they were really nice and vulnerable in sharing kind of their upbringing and how they become who they are today. And I started to realize that, wait a second, I'm no different than these guys.
Yeah.
Some of them arguably had more hurdles than I had. So I have no room to complain or say, because of
Or that there's some low ceiling against you, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I quickly realized that. And so I was making the rounds in nursing home all the way up to being an administrator and operating a nursing home. And at that point, I met my now business partner in several of a project. And he came from a health system where he was working in healthcare before. He had a background in the hospital on primary care clinic settings. And so he was kind of venting about the experience he have had with a particular project they were working on. And, me being me, says, hey, what if we just go do this? If they won't take this on as a big system, what if we go just build a platform where we can facilitate the service on their behalf and just charge a fee for service for doing it? And it must have been, 4 or 5 months of me, convincing him that we should go do this for him to finally believe that we can go do it. And so it was a wild day over. I think we're having like a Mexican food in a restaurant. He says, hey, he says, okay, if we go do this, what will it take? And the idea was at that point was that this could be something we could do on the side. We'll all keep our day nursing home job, and we could do this and create a bit of income for our family on the side, we knew someone. We realized that we need a few key components to make it work. We'd have to be able to do it efficiently, which was Procure Innovations. We have to be able to have some kind of software system where we can, document and track. We have to be able to provide some kind of report to give some value add to the providers. So anyway, we kind of brainstorm of how we could do this in a manner that could serve, we could go sell it as a service to primary care and health system across, at that point, the neighboring states, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And so we had, man, gosh, I don't know, some really, really long nights. We knew a guy who had a full-time job like herself, knew a bit of coding. And so we're saying, hey, we have no money, but we have this crazy idea. What are you, crazy enough to join us on this journey? And so we rent this, crappy building space, sublet a space for, I don't know, $200 a month or something in Fort Smith. And it was, we grind it. We'd work all day. And in the evening, we'll leave our day job, go there at night, and in this, this deplorable space.
I paid $200 a month for my first office.
Oh man!
But I was above Russ's Lunch in Massachusetts. It was pretty nice.
This was
other than you smelled like a burger.
I would take that. You remember the smoke alarm was so close to the heat vent, so in the winter.
The heat kicks on.
The heat kicks on, and the fire alarm goes off.
Oh, gosh.
And there were nights where, man, we couldn't. I think our first whiteboard was like a shower wall because we couldn't. Whiteboards were expensive, right? So it was
shower
like
wall. I love.
And in a sense, looking back, it's pretty innovative. To go buy a level piece. I don't know, it was like $60 or something, maybe less. Piece of 8x4, almost like a plywood, but it's like those plastic.
Melamine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Turn it to the Home Depot.
Yeah, exactly.
4x8 strips, man.
Yep. And
for your mobile home.
Hey, that was our whiteboard, okay? So take it easy.
Hey, man.
You do what you gotta do, man.
And then you use it for a bit, you wipe it off, and it starts turning like reddish or blue.
Or
whatever.
it doesn't come off overnight, and you have to like really scrub that thing to get it off, and so.
Or go get you a new one.
Yeah, $11-12. It was easy.
That's right.
Much cheaper than a whiteboard. That was kind of the birth. I know that's of kind of again. In a summary, how I become from
that's
this.
Isn't that an amazing
Fantastic,
story?
Man.
So
Fantastic.
Let me just go back to these businesses, and I don't know whether you and I didn't talk about this. You've told me some things before, but I don't know whether you'd share this with the public here. But just what kind of volume are these businesses that you have doing, like these healthcare businesses? Are these hundreds of thousands a year, millions of dollars? What are they in revenue?
In millions.
Uh-huh.
In millions. So I'll start with kind of Procure as our telehealth platform. That's a business that we bootstrap. It was really, really organic getting it off the ground. And we kind of just really stick to our values of just service. Let's just figure out how to provide good service. So when we started business initially, our focus was just kind of helping providers with a once a year kind of a preventive screening that insurer realized that most patients kind of go in to their doctor when they have an acute event. And so if they can create just one visit per year where they can focus on the patient overall health and kind of create a plan to essentially resolve or address any kind of potential health needs that could occur over that calendar year, they could have some success. And so it was formally called an annual wellness visit. It's really geared more towards seniors, geriatrics. And we had some success in doing so. We're able to get some providers to believe that this, young guy, these young guys have what it takes.
Were you the guy out selling?
Yes, it was me and my business partner. We're tag teaming it.
Don't doctors just love seeing people trying to sell them stuff?
Oh boy, I tell you what.
It's always been
It was, for the longest, it was when I started grub beard, really, because I was bald head
older
and bald face and looked like a 9-year-old. You know, and these doctors are like, you know, they're in their 60s and as run a practice in their mind. Yeah, I was like, who are you telling me how you can help me create
just for men, gray beard dye or whatever.
It's awesome.
So yeah, so without going too far off in the weeds, we started with wellness visit, and then insurers, Medicare realized that, okay, this is working. We're seeing that patients who are getting these once a year preventive screening and assessment and plan of care develop are actually going in to get their mammograms and identifying items before they become either breast cancer.
So it reduces costs and improves health. That's the idea. Yeah.
So with that in mind, they launched another service called chronic care management. And that was kind of our catalyst for success, really, because an opportunity to really offer that service, it allows us to do it. It was more telephonic. So with the wellness visit, we're really having contractors and nurses going into these offices, and logistically, it was just a lot of barriers to that. With chronic care management, or CCM for short, we were able to know.
You love the initials, I swear.
TD.
It's like every company has got some kind of
CCM.
Yeah, I know.
It's like a strange and beautiful language.
I think healthcare in itself, they have so much apologies and, so yeah.
Wow.
So we got into chronic care management pretty heavily. We were serving thousands of patients per month and tens of thousands of patients per month. And this, we basically have these clinical call centers of clinical team members and would contract with a provider anywhere nationwide from, Albany, Georgia to, Chicago.
Yeah.
And we would essentially obtain a list of their patients who meet these criterias, and we our software just walk this clinical team through a pathway of how to best identify gaps in care, and then navigate those patients back to the appropriate level of care. So we become kind of a quarterback between the patients and their providers, and it worked. The patients love it. So the patient satisfaction goes up because the patient's like, wow, my provider actually cares about my care, not just for an acute event, but when, in between those acute events. And then we're able to reduce overall costs. So we could actually show where patients who are enrolled in the program have fewer and fewer hospital events, ED visits, because we're having these touch points and navigating care. So with that said, there's a long way of answering your question around the revenue side of things, but we're able to get up to a pretty healthy revenue in the millions.
So
anyway.
Wow.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you talk about food service, and that's where your roots were, right? That's what you got trained in. And I really appreciate that, because I used to work banquets. I was a server all through high school, college, bartending,
Holiday
cocktail service, Holiday Inn, Mallard Club.
Yeah, baby.
Hey, man, charity ball events, dressed up in my tux.
Oh, yeah.
It's good training for
carrying trays of 18 plates.
Oh,
man, only a 17, 18-year-old person can do that without breaking down. But
running,
sweating, man, eating pecan pies off the trays for a little snickety snack.
We won't talk about that.
Taking other people's food, right? We won't talk about it. But what I loved about it, what it showed me, and there's a thread that runs through your business, and definitely mine, and I think we might take it for granted, service. Because when you're in the food service business, it's about greeting, getting to the table fast, taking your order on time, making sure the order's not messed up, yelling at the chefs and the bus people, get this done, right? Pre-bussing, and then giving the card or the check, running the check quickly, saying thank you, have a great day, to come back.
You're absolutely right.
It's a great lesson.
Yeah,
man, it is.
Absolutely
The whole time you're sweating, and it's about turning, and, but it's also about patience.
Yeah.
There's so much to it that I think is running through the thread and mantra of your businesses today, in which I think runs through mine.
Yeah.
It's really funny you say that. I was just thinking all three of my oldest girls have all worked in food service.
Got to, man.
And they're all successful in their own way. And, it's
you
a
learn
great...
to talk to people.
You do.
You really
learn to look in the eye. And then the other thing I loved about it is if you messed up, you busted.
Yeah.
You're accountable for your mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's not on anybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if it is on somebody else, the bartender's not getting, you're coming back, I apologize.
Yeah.
Massaging the scenario.
You have to learn to navigate.
time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a good point you brought up, but honestly, I've never looked at that way. I've always known that I have an interest in ensuring that the service is there, but I never really correlated to my early years.
Yeah.
But absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Because when you got that guest in, it's like all eyes on that guest and the experience you have to give them. I mean, all these little things have to come together to work. And you're, like you mentioned, quarterback.
Yeah.
You're quarterbacking that whole experience.
Yeah.
You know, I never worked in food service, but I did work.
We see that problem with you.
I'm sure you did. I worked in bike.
Eric, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I worked in bike shops during my whole youth, but my boss would send me. It would get upset with me because people would bring a tire in to get a flat fix, and I could fix it in like a minute or a minute and a half. He goes, Mark, they're not going to pay us $1 when they see it takes you only a minute or a minute and a half. He goes, you got to tell them this is going to be an hour. Go to the IGA and get a cup of coffee and come back. And then they'll feel like it's worth it with the money they spent. Anyway, it was a dysfunctional model for service.
It's a very interesting model.
I'd rather just do it fast and be done. But no, that's an amazing story, Richard. And unfortunately, we're running out of time.
We are, but I got one more point I want to make.
Okay,
Mark.
please do.
Because I think it's so important, the listeners, right?
Yeah.
So you got service, but then the other thing that you talked about was there's two things. One was opportunity, in which we kind of discussed
Jumping
on it. But then there's the one that is often missed, and especially in today's time, work.
Oh, God.
Work.
Yeah.
You talked about double shifts all the way up, man, until a few years ago. Moonlighting, just
still do.
it. Still
I still do.
He works
You
late
know?
right
Exactly.
I still do.
And you do. I know.
now. Yeah, I
too.
do. We all do.
Relentless.
Yeah.
Work.
It's a differentiator, in my opinion. It honestly is.
I know.
It is.
It is a differentiator between success and those who are not. You have to willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
There's no if, ands, or but.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's labor, man.
Yeah.
Getting people to understand how critical it is to be super responsive to a problem.
Yeah.
Like you see these businesses where somebody gripes on Facebook or something about them, and then watch how long it takes the company to weigh in. If that was my business, buddy,
You'd be all, no. Yeah,
it's going to be no more than 5 to 15 minutes before somebody is going to be jumping in to solve the problem or deal with the complaint. But they'll go hours or days.
Yeah.
It's like that's not the way to be successful today.
And you in the very beginning, you brought up, we were talking before the show about just theories and books and education. I mean, we get into this point where people will believe that you just need to be smart and well-educated and learned.
Yes.
And then they don't work. Like,
It's true.
in the cultures today, like in businesses, in which they kind of have to, because like in technology space, like, unlimited PTO and all this, which is, I'm not arguing against that.
Yeah.
But you can't come in and you're looking to like just have the half day off on Friday and you in like checkbox done. That's all I need to do. You're not, you might be able to be employed, but you're not going to excel, because I can tell you the executives and all the senior leadership are working.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're right.
You're right. I mean, it's just this whole idea. Well, I've had to deal with this online. One of the mantras of a lot of the management experts today is work on your business, not in your business. That's another one I think is total bullshit.
It is.
Because if you don't work in your business, you don't see these problems. You don't know who's good and who isn't. You don't know how long it takes to do things.
You're absolutely right.
You've got to remain involved. Sure, we all rather would just not do anything and collect
human
massive
nature.
checks,
Yeah.
right?
Sit back, eat pizza and ice cream, and stay skinny. But
It ain't going to work like that.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
But if you're passionate about your business and you're really trying to do something good and you want to build, then you got to put the work in.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think it lends a frame of mind and wealth in creating culture.
Yeah.
Again, of course, as organizations grow and change, that evolve. But when employees see that you're here putting in that grind, you're setting an example, a foundation for them, help building that culture. I think it goes a long way.
But
it's everything.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because we've all been in this boat I'm going to bring up now. That is, we've got multiple things we're doing.
True. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot on the fire.
So your sign company, I'm just throwing this out as an example. They might think, oh, shit, we only see Richard like once a week. He rolls in here in his fancy car and, that guy doesn't work that hard. They don't realize all the other stuff you're doing. How do you deal with that? Because I felt like
that's a good
that.
Question.
In the past, I felt like I can't get everybody. Yeah, I may be working 60 hours or 80 hours a week or 70 or whatever it is in total, but they don't all see it. They only see me here for 20 hours a week. They might think I'm lazy.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? That's a good question.
Acknowledge what I see. So I literally have a place in my calendar for acknowledgement where I make notes as I go to this different location, and just out of the blue somewhere I'll say, hey, even on Thursday, I'll send a quick ping to an employee who I noticed that was doing something unique. Say, hey, I just want to say, I noticed you were doing this last Thursday. Hey, job well done. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging even that one where I'm at a side company for a week, taking the time to let that, observing, maybe not in the moment.
It's a very good point.
Let them know, say, hey,
I noticed.
I heard from GM that you guys did a fantastic job with this project, and I just want to take the time to say, hey, thank you for going the extra mile.
Yes.
That does. That actually kills a lot of birds with one stone.
Boy,
because not only are you building culture, continue to influence that vision you have, but then it's demonstrating your presence.
Yeah.
Yes.
To your point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all that's positive versus being negative, of where you're like, you feel like this pressure to just dive in. Yeah.
And I'm super intentional about it. And the next piece is giving them ownership. Hey, I'm just a guy who happened to make transaction happen.
Right.
But this is you guys' baby. You're represented here. So put yourself in the customer's shoes, and it usually resonates well.
See, I think a lot of business owners will say that, but then what do they do? In reality, they share no financial information with anybody. They don't pay anybody anything they don't absolutely have to. And so it becomes empty.
Yeah.
They say it's your business, but really it's not. You don't treat me like it's my business. Yeah. And that's another thing, obviously, you have to do, or you wouldn't be in business. You'd lose your people.
Yeah.
You hear all these people complaining about their inability to hire people today. I mean, I know you got 120, 130 employees at your primary business. I mean, it's not going to happen if you really don't back that up.
Yeah. True. So true.
Real opportunities, real information, real delegation or abdication sometimes.
Yeah.
Before you close us out, I do want, and then after I ask this question, if you close us out, that's great. But I want to know, what would Richard tell the young Richard back did I steal your thunder?
No, I think it's a great
I think that the audience may be going, hey, we need a new host for this podcast.
That was
me to be there. Yeah. Can you move Mark to...
Yeah.
But what would you say today to the young Richard that's going to school, it takes an hour to commute and go back? Like, what is the key to success?
How do you keep him motivated?
I'll try to keep my answers as brief as possible. But I have a mantra in our household for our kids, and part of my one thing I try to do as much as I can is bring them to school in the morning. And we have this motto we say every morning is do your best and be nice to others. And they have to repeat back, and there are times where they're like, okay, Dad, the door is open. We won't say it. The best and be nice to
So embarrassing.
But what they take from that, and I hope they do, and why we do it, is because I know that not every part of your day, everything of what you do is going to go according to plan. But if you're intentional about just doing your best, literally just doing your best every day, and then just be kind to people around you. That goes a long way. But
That's a good mantra.
yeah, and the kids, like I said, they've been singing for a while now, and so at times they're probably like, "Oh gosh, we have to say this again."
You're so embarrassing.
No,
So-
that jokes are the worst. But the younger Richard, really, I think just regardless of the obstacle, just don't give up. Just realize that it could be worse. But if you're willing to have the right attitude and to keep going, I have no doubt that it's possible. And next piece, just be vulnerable about where you are. I mean, I think that as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's so easy for us to feel like it's, unusual or uncommon to share.
We're alone.
Yeah, of where you are. Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes just being vulnerable and, with like-minded folks and know where you're struggling, I think that you can oftentimes get someone who's willing to dedicate time
It's really
to help
true.
you get through whatever that may be. So that's a long, I said I was going to be brief to the answer. That's a long answer to your question, so I'm hoping that.
That's great.
But yeah, that's it for sure.
The young Richard did okay.
Young Rich
So I'm not sure he
man.
needs a lot of advice.
Champion, man.
Yeah, he is.
Love it.
Love young Richard. I wish I had some young Richard.
No, man. Where
You know?
are all the young
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the young Richard was he knew what he didn't want. I'm not sure if he knew what he wanted, but he knew that when you look at the life of forming, and leaving high school, and that was it, and realizing that you want something hungry enough or not want something bad enough, you'll work hard enough towards whatever that is on that pendulum swing, right? You'll work hard enough to make sure that this is not the outcome.
Knowing what you don't want, I think, is really essential as an entrepreneur. Because every time you move away from things you don't want or don't want to do, new opportunities, multiple opportunities come your way.
Yeah.
So just being able to say no, and that's not what I want. I mean, I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
And in business strategy, sometimes knowing how the other guys do things and saying, we're going to be the opposite of them
Yep.
can be a good strategy.
You look at the lab,
You know?
that's our success there.
Do what they don't do.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been another really fun,
Awesome.
really fun talk here with you, Richard. I'm so glad you were able to share with our audience.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're a friend of mine. You're an inspiration. And I always come away from meeting with Richard feeling better than I did beforehand and hopeful.
I'm humbled by that. So
Yeah.
again, it's absolutely, that's certainly appreciated, and the feeling is mutual.
Well, great. Well, thank you.
And it's really cool that you're here when the last time that Mark was the official host of this podcast. I mean, like, this is kind of a time
I'm
stamp
already
in the
being
history.
moved out. I tell ya, the old guy just gets pushed aside.
We'll need to give him a few months as a server in the service industry.
Yeah, this is what needs to happen. I agree. Yeah,
Shape
you
up a
should
little
probably
bit.
go to, I think you'd be good at Burger King.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't like their fries, honestly. But anyway, well, thanks, everybody. This has been another episode of Big Talk about
Small business.
business. Okay, well, thanks, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you again next episode.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about small business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.